How does a tiny, basically unknown clan of warriors on the edge of a dying world go on to build one of the most powerful empires in history? Well, that is the incredible story we're going to dive into today, a truly epic tale of ambition, genius, and unstoppable conquest. So I want you to picture this. It's the late 1200s. The world is just chaotic. Big old empires are falling apart, the Mongol hordes are tearing through Asia, and the region of Anatolia, what's modern-day Turkey, is just a messy patchwork of little kingdoms, all fighting each other. And somewhere in that mix, there's this one small tribe that nobody's really paying attention to. Okay, now fast forward just 200 years. That same tribe, they're not so small anymore. In fact, they now rule a massive empire that stretches across Europe, Asia, and Africa. They've become a global superpower. So how on earth did that happen? Let's break it down. All right, our story really kicks off in this land of, well, ruins and opportunity. Think about it. All the old powers were gone, which meant there was this huge power vacuum. It was the perfect environment for something new, something fierce to rise up and take over. See, after the big Seljuk Empire collapsed, Anatolia splintered into all these little rival territories called beyliks. You can just think of them as mini warrior states. And they were all locked in this constant, brutal fight for land, for resources, for survival. It was a real pressure cooker. And right into the middle of this chaos steps our main character for Chapter 1, Osman Ghazi. He's the leader of a small clan, a tough frontier warrior, and his name, Osman, is going to become the root of one of history's most famous empires, the Ottomans. Now here's the thing. Osman was more than just a great fighter. He was a brilliant strategist. He didn't just conquer randomly, he expanded with a clear plan. He made powerful alliances by marrying into other families. And here's a really clever move. He made his lands a safe place for refugees, which meant more people, more soldiers, and a stronger power base. He was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. So, Osman basically lit the fuse. He laid the foundation. But it was the next generation, his successors, who would take that spark and build it into a roaring fire. They're the ones who really designed the empire. So after Osman dies, his son, Orhan Ghazi, steps up. And if his dad was the founder, Orhan was the builder. He's the one who starts putting all the formal pieces in place. You know, the stuff you actually need to run a real state, not just a warrior band. And what he does is a total game changer. He creates a professional, full-time army. He sets up an official capital city in Bursa, giving them a real center of gravity. And then he does something huge. He crosses into Europe. That single move changes everything. Suddenly, they weren't just another little Anatolian kingdom anymore. They were an international power. Next up is Murad I. And if Orhan built the state, Murad was the guy who took all those pieces and forged them into a true centralized empire. He was the architect who drew up the blueprints for the whole imperial machine. And here's maybe his most brilliant and most ruthless idea, the Janissaries. Just think about this. They would take young boys from conquered Christian lands, raise them as Muslims, and train them to become the most elite soldiers in the world, completely loyal to one person and one person only, the Sultan. This gave him a personal super army that would dominate battlefields for centuries. Absolutely terrifyingly effective. Murad used this new power to just roll over the Balkans. His masterpiece was the Battle of Kosovo in 1389, where he completely crushed the Serbian army. But then, in one of history's wildest twists, he's assassinated on the battlefield, literally moments after his greatest victory. A dramatic, bloody end for sure. But by then, the empire he built had a momentum all its own. All right, so the next guy up, Murad's son, was a different breed of ruler. His reign was incredibly fast, incredibly aggressive, and in the end, incredibly tragic. This is the story of Bayezid I, a man they called the Thunderbolt. Bayezid definitely earned his nickname. He moved like lightning, famously smashing a massive European army of crusaders. He looked totally invincible. But then he ran into another legend, the Central Asian conqueror Timur, also known as Tamerlane. When these two titans clashed at the Battle of Ankara in 1402, it was an absolute disaster for the Ottomans. The Thunderbolt was defeated, and even worse, he was captured.
11 years. Just let that number sink in. For 11 years after that defeat, the Ottoman state literally tore itself to pieces. Bayezid's sons went to war with each other in a horrible, bloody civil war. The entire empire, built so carefully over 100 years, was right on the brink of just disappearing.
But they didn't disappear. Somehow they pulled it back together. The empire was reunified, made even stronger, and it set the stage for one young sultan with a single, absolutely audacious dream: to conquer the greatest, most legendary city in the entire world. I mean, seriously, how do you do it? For 1,000 years, the city of Constantinople and its gigantic walls had turned back every single army that tried to take it. It was a legend. It was considered impossible to conquer. So yeah, how do you do the impossible? Well, you do it with pure genius. The new Sultan, Mehmed II, who was only about 19, by the way, came up with a master plan. First, he builds a fortress to cut the city off from any help. Then he commissions these brand new, enormous cannons, basically super weapons of their day, designed to just pulverize the ancient walls. He builds a huge navy. And then, in a move that is still legendary, he drags his warships over a hill on greased logs to get them past the city's defenses. It's just unbelievable stuff. For 53 straight days, Mehmed's forces just hammered the city from every direction, by land and by sea. Can you imagine the intensity? It was one of the most critical sieges in history, a real clash between the old world and the new. And then, on May 29th, 1453, the walls finally broke. Constantinople fell. In that moment, the 1,000-year-old Roman Empire officially winked out of existence, and the Ottoman Empire was reborn as a true global superpower, with its capital in the newly renamed Istanbul, and Mehmed now known forever as the Conqueror. So let's just step back and ask, what was their secret sauce? How did they manage this incredible rise so far and so fast? It wasn't just luck. It was a really specific combination of things that just gave them a massive advantage over everybody else. It really boils down to this. First, they were incredibly flexible, and they adapted to new situations constantly. They were always innovating their military, right? Like with the Janissaries and those giant cannons. They were also master diplomats, and this is a big one. They were often pretty tolerant of the people they conquered. They absorbed them, took their best ideas, and blended cultures instead of just wiping them out. And all of it was held together by a strong, centralized government. And you can really see that explosive growth right here. I mean, look at this. You start with Osman's little frontier state in 1300. By 1400, it's a major regional empire. And by 1500, after the fall of Constantinople, they're an undisputed world superpower. The speed of that expansion is just staggering. You see, their entire rise was built on one thing: the ability to adapt and innovate. And that leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. Because the story of how the Ottoman Empire eventually fell, and that's a story for another time, is wrapped up in this very idea. What happens to any great power in any time in history when it loses the very flexibility that made it great in the first place?